Okay, so let's start with the weekly current affairs, and let's see the list of the topics which are there. So the list is long and it's a big lecture, but let's quickly identify the important ones first. So another brick in the wall against banking fraud. So there's one news: the new consumer, increasing dependence on indirect taxes. So we'll discuss a little about the direct and indirect taxes. Then agricultural infrastructure fund scheme, negative import list for defense, submarine cable connectivity to Andaman and Nicobar Island, issue of contempt of court, clause 6 of Assam Accord. Okay, so we have a lot of important news today. Okay, so it will be a long lecture for 2 hours. So little patience needed from your side. Okay, so let's start. The first one, we'll start with another brick in the wall against banking fraud. Now here Indus Water Treaty is also important, and then there are some basic news which can be read. You can read it yourself as well. The factual news also there. So the first is another brick in the wall against banking fraud. Now what RBI has done, so that RBI has put restrictions on the bank who can open current account. Now remember, so there are two. There is an account called demand deposit. Okay, so when you go to a bank, there are two kind of accounts. One is called demand deposit, other is called time deposits. Okay. So when you go to a bank, so demand deposit means saving account and current account. Time deposits are mainly the fixed deposits, FDs. You must have heard the fixed deposits. And there are recurring deposits, RD. So why they are called time deposit? Because there is a time defined that. Okay, time. You can just, you have to do FD for 2 years or 1 year. Recurring deposit is again, you can't break the account. Okay, you have to, put money every month. So these are time defined deposit, which means the money can be withdrawn only after a certain period of time. But the demand deposit are the deposits where money can be withdrawn on demand anytime. So I can open the account. For example, you have a saving account. So moment you open a saving account or your salary account, you can withdraw money anytime from the bank. For business people, they can withdraw money from the account, but that is called current account. So current account is mainly for business people. And why business people need it? For day-to-day running business. So let's say you have a business and every day, you have a collection of money. So what you will do, you'll put that money in the current account. Then every day you are putting money in the bank account, and every day you're withdrawing also. If you can deposit 10 times in a day, you can withdraw 10 times in a day. So that is a current account, and these are mainly business account. And the idea is to ensure that whenever business gets money, the flow of business up and down, this account will be very handy for business people. So what has happened recently, what RBI has done? So let's say I have taken a loan from bank 1. So let's say I've taken a loan from SBI. Okay, I've taken a loan of, let's say, 10 lakh rupees, and I'm doing business. Now this is a business loan, remember. Then I open another bank, let's say ICICI. But with ICICI, I open my current account. Okay. So there is a problem, remember. I took loan from SBI, I'm doing business, but whatever the business money is coming, I'm putting in the current account. Okay. And now SBI does not have information about this. Why? Because both the bank have no direct correlation. Okay. So SBI is a different branch, the different bank, and ICICI is a different bank. So the banks do not know what is happening in my business. The bank only knows now what SBI can happen. Many times I can do business, I can put money here, but I might not repay the loan. Maybe repayment is poor, let's say. Okay. And you might tell the bank, see, my business is not doing so well, and that is why I'm not repaying the loan. But in actual situation could be something else. Maybe you're doing this willfully. Janbujh ke, you're not paying the money of the bank. So this kind of situation should be avoided. And that is where what RBI has done. RBI has said that when you take a loan from bank 1 and you have to open a current account, that current account should also be from the same bank. You can't open a current account from another bank and you take loan from another bank. So this is a problem where business people are misusing this provision, and that is where RBI came with the restriction. Okay. So RBI has put restriction on who can open current account with which bank. The article explains the salience of RBI's recent restriction on the opening of current account by the companies. So current account is mainly business account, and here what RBI has done or said that if you want to open account current account, and you have taken loan also, the loan and the current account bank should be same. They should not be different. The company that has borrowed from bank cannot open current account with another bank. It can open current account with the lending bank under some circumstances. Otherwise, company is encouraged to use the cash credit. Cash credit is called CC account. Okay, CC account, cash credit, and overdraft facilities under which it has borrowed. Okay, so that is the, so this is a problem where many a times company might use this kind of fraud, and when they see, many a times it is not intentional. Maybe you're just you are opening a new account because you feel it is convenient. But remember, it is not about convenience. It is also about rules and business ethics. The bank should know that you have taken money from the bank, and hence you should be paying or opening a new account in the same bank. Firms borrow from PSU bank but open account with private or foreign banks. When transaction move to current account of banks other than the lending bank, it loses visibility on the end of use of the fund. Especially the PSU bank has no idea where the money has gone. For example, when a firm gets money from its customers, instead of parking it with the lending bank, it puts it on the current account with another bank. Okay, the lending bank has no way of knowing if the loan is going bad, willfully or otherwise. So this practice should be avoided, and that is why the RBI has said that if you take a loan from X bank, you should open the current account or a business running account in the same bank, not in a different bank. Why private bank are opposing the move? Why they are opposing? Because they feel that the revenue that might come to them might not come. So that is a problem. Okay, so they can of course start lending to firms to retain this business, and that would be taking a risk. So that means, let's say I have an account with with a bank, and I said, see, I'm closing the account. Now that bank will say, sir, why you're closing the account? You say, see, RBI rule is this. So okay, sir, do one thing, open account in my bank as well. Sir, take a loan from my bank as well. So this is about taking a risk, and maybe many times bank want to retain the customers, and that kind of thing should be avoided. So this RBI rule is mainly for ensuring that the businesses run properly and seamlessly. I'll give you some historical background. In past 2000, since the period 2004 to 2008 to 2014, the lending increased multiple times. Okay, I have to check the data, but I think if I remember correctly, the total lending was around 17 lakh crore, and that increased to 52 lakh crore. Okay, in the period. So this was 2008, and this was 2014. So now bank lending have increased, but because of this increased bank lending, one more thing that happened, that the bank, the people who have taken the loan, for example, we have Malia, we have Ambani Group, we have so many, big book Adani Group. They have taken big loans, the telecom companies, and they have not been able to repay the loan. So these are the problems, and what has happened, that this has led to a banking crisis, where people who have taken the loan are not repaying the loan, and this banking crisis is called, we'll study in the banking topic when I'll study economics, it is called twin balance sheet problem. So this is a problem that our economy is facing for past 6-7 years. So twin balance sheet is a problem under which the bank have given loan to big businesses and they're not repaying it. So it has two repercussions. The first is the balance sheet of the bank getting bad because the loans are not coming. So there is a NPA. The accounts have become NPA. What is NPA? Non-performing assets. So when you take loan from a bank and you don't repay the bank for 90 days, so bank will call it as an NPA account. Okay, that is the first thing. The second thing is that because bank have given loan, so their loan has become NPA, but the companies also have taken, and the companies are in corporate debt. So there is a high corporate debt, and this high corporate debt has led to their balance sheet also getting bad. So that is why it is called twin balance sheet. Both the balance sheet of the banks getting bad, and the balance sheet of the corporate companies getting bad. So this is called twin balance sheet problem. Our economy is facing since 2014. So Preeti has a question. Can't we have a universal number which can info all the bank? Yes, Preeti. Now it has all these provision that you are saying. Now it has been created in the past 4-5 years. Okay, so now things are there is a credit number, there is a linkages, all that has happened. Okay, so whatever you are mentioning, that has started in past few years. We are integrating the banking system. Okay, so now if you've taken a big loan, that is mentioned in that data, and whenever you take a new loan, that can be checked. Okay, so we have that provision now. Yes, yes, it is already there now. It is being already implemented. I'll discuss that in the banking part. Don't worry. So this is what this is how the problems of the bank system is happening. So this twin balance sheet is a problem that our economy has been facing, and this is also an example where bank can take risk. Or sorry, the business people can take a risk and may impact the bank. Why it matters to bank customers? uh, Vanishing money raises the cost of fund to the bank and result in higher lending rate and lower deposit rates for us. See, when you take a loan from bank, let's say, and you don't pay the loan, okay, so that loan becomes NPA. Now the problem here is that the bank will go in losses. Now in order to recover the loss, what bank will do? Bank will increase the interest rate. So bank क्या करेगा? Interest rate बढ़ा देगा of other loans. Okay, so that it can earn more, and many times the bank losses are so high that maybe government might have to intervene. So government might have to intervene, and government might have to pay or maybe help the bank if the bank is government bank, let's say. So government might have to help, and that money will come from where? From the taxpayers money. So that is why it is very important that business which is happening in the economy, especially on the banking side, it should follow a rule of ethical approach. If the bank loses money because of the factors, let's say this COVID-19 is going on, and because of this, if the business are going bad, then it is okay. If maybe the business plan business plan did not happen on ground as per the business proposal, so that is okay. But if people are doing willfully, if willfully they're not paying the loan, like what happened with Mr. Malia, he right now he's in London and his asset is more than the loan that he has, but he's giving to the proposal to the bank, said that I'll give you a loan back. The loan is of more than 9,000 crore, but he's saying take 6,000 crore because this is what I have taken. The bank is saying no. What about 3K interest? You have to pay the interest as well. So he's saying no, take this 6K. So the point I want to make here is that this kind of practice should be avoided, and for that you need to have a strong banking system, where where rules or regulations are followed ethically, and people who do business, there's nothing wrong in business going bad. That is a normal cycle. Business will open, business will go bad, but it should be based on ethical basis. Okay. Worse for taxpayers, it means regular use of our funds to recapitalize the bank system that periodically goes bankrupt due to loans gone bad. Okay, so these are the problem. One is that if people don't repay the money taken from bank, it can cause the cost of funds for other people. At the same time, if the bank is government bank, let's say SBI loses money, so SBI's owners is government of India. Okay, so eventually when a loss will be way too high, then government of India will have to will have to give or help the SBI from its own fund, and that fund will come from taxes or budget. So these are the problems, and that is why everything is interlinked in the economy, and that is where it is important that we run it properly. For too long, the citizens have been punished with greater scrutiny, tighter rules, higher costs, and fewer benefits as compared to the suits. We should let bank handwriting, but celebrate the closure of each loophole as it happens. So these are the loopholes that we are correcting in the recent time. Okay, so this is, I hope you understood this. Remember, when we'll study economy, I'll be covering banking in a great detail. And I promise you all, everybody, that after my economics lecture, you'll feel very comfortable in economics, and any question of prelims or mains, koi bhi question prelims mains mein, you'll be able to solve almost every of them. So that is my promise to you. Make sure you attend my lectures properly, and at the same time, just read newspapers. That's all you need to do, and you'll be very comfortable in at least economics part, because economics is highly conceptual. Even if you read books, you might not be able to understand, because it is conceptual and it is highly current related. So this is an example of current in the banking. One more thing, again, the next news is also related to economic, the new consumer. So what has happened in COVID-19? The COVID-19 has impacted the economy. It has impacted the business. Now, what are the sectors which are greatly impacted by COVID-19? The first sector is, of course, tourism, hospitality industry. Okay, means hotel and all the relevant tourism, hospitality industry, travel, tour business. Okay, then the school. Okay, higher education. Now, though still there is an alternative of online education, but India Everybody cannot go for online education. Online education, for higher classes like us, maybe it is still possible because you are mature, maybe the students are mature, uh, but offline class has its own value. So these are the sectors which have greatly impacted economy: tourism, hospitality, travel, school, higher education. And here, things are very bad. Now remember, these sectors, especially education, travel, they account a big part of the economy in terms of job generation. Now, coming to how it has impacted us. Now, everybody in the economy right now, there is a lot of uncertainty. And why there is an uncertainty? Because we don't know how the COVID-19 will spread out. We don't know how this COVID-19 will impact us. We don't know how this COVID-19 will impact a certain place. For example, right now, I'm in my hometown. I was in Delhi till last month, and then I moved to my hometown, waiting for things to be normal in Delhi, and then probably I'll move back. Now, why? Because there are uncertainty in Delhi. But that uncertainty has always been contained. Now the number of cases in Delhi is almost in control. But again, what government has planning today, they want to open weekly market. They want to open the gyms. Sorry, not gyms. The hotels are being opening. Maybe gyms will also open. So again, the cases will go up. So because of this uncertainty, how this pandemic will spread out and how it will impact the people. So what people do, that they don't do business. So we will move to our essentials. हम सिर्फ अपने essentials पे focus करेंगे. Essentials could be the food, can be essentials. Okay. The non-food, again, those areas which are very important. The luxury can wait. Okay. So when you go for a luxury food, when you go for eating out, dining out, okay, when you want to purchase a big car, okay, a new house, okay, so all that can wait. Okay, maybe you'll wait. These are luxuries. Maybe purchasing cosmetics. Okay, going for a travel or trip, maybe vacation, holiday. All these are luxuries and they can wait. Now you're focused on essentials. Why? Because there is uncertainty in the economy, and also a lot of people, people's income have impacted. So every business is getting impacted. The business are not running at their full potential, especially the smaller businesses. Take example of the small traders, the petty, the hawkers, the rickshaw walas, the thela walas. How they are responding. For them, life has practically been difficult. Just think of 2, 3 cities. Think of Pune, think of Mumbai, think of Chennai, think of Delhi. These are maybe the big centers. Same is case with Ahmedabad, Hyderabad. These are big places of India. And being a big place in India, it generates a lot of business and opportunity for people. So when the business are getting impacted, everybody is getting impacted. The small traders, the businessmen, the small manufacturing units, the MSME sector, as mentioned by Abhijit. So everything is getting impacted, and that is where people have moved to essentials. Now, essentials. So this means that the entire economy, the demand of thing has come. So demand niche chala gaya. The entire economy is based on the concept of demand and supply. So if the demand is there, the supply will be there. But when the demand is less, there will be no supply. Demand of what? Demand of everything, the goods and services. Now the demand of what is there. Right now we're having kada. So every day I am having kada. Practically I don't remember in past my life how many times, right now I'm having tulsi tea and I'm having, all that, glow and, all these things we are having, not only me, everybody. Okay. So maybe the food habits have changed. People are not having ice creams. I remember one of my friend, he has a small ice cream factory, and he's practically shut from past 5 months. His whole stock got wasted because there was nobody to purchase ice creams. So this is a problem that we are facing, and the demand in the economy has come down to a different level. And maybe in some places COVID-19 might be little control, but that is not true of the whole India. The whole India is at different level. The peak has come to some places. In some places, peak might come to after 2 months. So these are the problems. And so this article discuss about how the new consumer is responding. New consumer जो है वो कैसे respond कर रहा है. The consumer during and post COVID is showing remarkable flexibility and bring a paradigm shift in the consumption pattern. Now remember, India is a consumption driven economy. So we are economy entirely driven on consumption. We consume things, okay, and that consumption creates demand in the economy. That consumption creates maybe supply in the economy, create job opportunities. So that is what is needed. Some government are busy demanding opening up of the economy. A very good example is Mr. Kejriwal, because the revenues have dried up. However, the issue is that economy does not merely need opening up; it requires urgent generation of the basic demand. सिर्फ economy खोलने से नहीं होगा. People have lost jobs, people have lost income. The salaries, maybe a lot of people are, the small business have closed. So people who are dependent on that business, will not get a job, and that is why consumer behavior needs to be closely watched. Since the lockdown, the priorities of consumer have seen a drastic shift. The decrease in the purchasing power to buy products need to be addressed. The government must look at ways like reduction in taxes, which can help the common man. Government ने उल्टा कर दिया. Government increase, the fuel on diesel and petrol by 10 rupees. Can you believe that? So this is because government ने taxes बढ़ा दिया. Government increased the indirect taxes. Okay, I remember, अभी तो कम किया है just few days ago. But maybe last month the diesel and petrol were the same rate. Can you believe that? The diesel is very important because diesel is used in transportation. There's big vehicles, the lorries. So all that, though abhi diesel is costly, which means transportation will be costly. Transportation is costly, means all the goods will be costlier. So it will have a direct, indirect impact on each one of us. So what government should be doing, maybe reduce the taxes, because if the tax is less, we can purchase more. The items will be cheaper, and this purchasing more will create demand, and this create demand will generate, will ensure the factories reopen, restart the supply, and again that supply will again generate employment. So economy is a cycle. Everything is interlinked, and when you generate that employment, the supply, the employment will happen, and things will start going back to the pre-COVID level. So current scenario has made all of us to go back to the basic needs. Luxury products holds little value, but renting will increase. Why renting? Because people will not purchase house. The emphasis would be on saving for the rainy day. Rainy means tough day, whether in the case of banks or household. But what I personally feel that right now a kind of acceptance have come. People have started realizing that I can't sit at home anymore. I have to go out. I have to do my work. I have to do my stuff. And even though I remember there were days when one COVID case used to come and the whole city, COVID cases come. And today every day some 50 cases, 100 cases are coming in almost every city of India, and where things are normal. If every day on an average India is getting 60,000 cases, which means almost every city is having number of cases to some or a higher extent. The areas of India, especially the North India, the central part of India, are densely populated. So naturally the number of cases will be more higher here. So this is what has happened. The demand has come down. Aviation, tourism, hospitality sectors have been badly hit even after restrictions are lifted. E-commerce has shown exponential growth. So abhi kya ho raha hai? Sab kuch e-commerce. So Flipkart, Amazon, Tata Click, and everything, Nykaa, and all those things are the new, maybe buzzword. With vocal for local gaining momentum, there is a huge increase in local apps, local kirana stores, local artisans and brands. Schools and colleges have taken a hit as e-learning and online courses are being preferred. The entertainment industry has been drastically hit. The media entertainment industry needs to pay heed to this and curate content accordingly. So abhi kya hai? OTT start ho gaya hai. So we have, Netflix, and we have Amazon Prime, and then we have so many Balaji Alt, and some Disney, and whatnot. So every time new things are coming, MX Player. So these are the places where the new movies are coming. Okay, so see the dynamics, how the economy is changing. With a lot of people laying emphasis on their health and immunity, there have been substantial rise in the consumption of organic, Ayurvedic, and immunity booster products. Okay, apart from the obvious product, financial and the medical insurance has played an important role. Remember, people are also, again, they want to secure themselves. So one thing that people are doing, that they are going for medical insurance, they're going for health insurance. So that is a kind of moving business in some direction. So these are the examples of how economy responds. Economy or people will respond as per the requirements, as per the economy happens. But economy is still not normal. The SBI data came just a few days ago, and what SBI data said that the first quarter of 2020, okay, that is from April to June, the economy shrank by almost 17%, 16.5%. So economy shrink ho gayi, which means, remember, economy normally grows. Rarely economy shrinks, because economy has a normal cycle. As your income will grow, your job will, as your life will go up, your quality of life will improve. Similarly, the economy will always go up, or mostly, will go up. But this is an extreme situation. The economy has shrank, which means it is almost certain that our GDP, which was there last year, is going to come down. By what number we don't know, but that is a problem. Even government knows that, and government is preparing, for the rainy day themselves. The real estate will suffer as no long-term higher investment purchase will be favored, but renting will, increase. People need to be provided with their basic needs like food, water, housing, electricity. The government is already taking care of that, but money also needs to be given. Jobs need to be provided through development of infrastructure. Now, this is a very good area. Now, conventional economy कहता है, okay, the conventional economy, says that economic theories rather. So the conventional economic theories, say that leave the economy, let the economy revive. But the new model which came in 1930s, it said no. When economy is going down, it's like you are unwell. So if you are unwell, which means we have to help you. If you are unwell, we have to help you. We have to provide you external help. Similarly, economy is also going down, which means economy is unwell, and hence we have to revive the economy. And one way is to provide stimulus to the economy, provide help to the economy, and that help is pumping money in the economy. आप economy में money pump करिए. Now, naturally, there are two people in the economy. One is the government or the public sector or public government, and others are private. Now, normally economy is run by private people, and government kind of regulates the economy. Government ensures rules and regulation, laws. Okay, so government regulates, but private sector run the economy. But right now, the private sector is suffering, which means the government will have to take the lead. And hence, this concept of stimulus says that let's intervene in the economy. And this intervention should be ways in which the economy can be revived. आप क्या करते हो? Let's start pumping money in the economy, pump rupee in the economy. आप कैसे करोगे? Give packages, give cheaper loans, give income support. Okay, so right now you must have got government is giving income support. Give invest in the economy through roads, infrastructure. You must have read. I'll be discussing the next week's lecture, that is National Infrastructure Pipeline. I'm going to discuss that how government is planning massive projects. Government knows that it does not have money, but still they are planning and they're looking ways. Recently, just yesterday, 2 days ago, our finance minister asked the UAE companies that why don't you come and invest? It's a big opportunity. So government can invest here, and one way is book ways to push infrastructure में आप invest करो, because this will generate jobs and demand as well. Farmers need to have insurance for their crops and infrastructure, to sell at the right price. Migrant workers with their livelihood being disrupted are being looking for support, and many are focusing on agriculture as a means of income. इस पूरे crisis में there has been one good point, and that good point has that agriculture or rural economy is relatively has not faced such severity as the other economy. So rural economy is doing better. Rural economy जो है वो अच्छा कर रही है, and that is the only solace. And why? Because I belong, basically I belong to a rural economy. I know how things are. So that kind of maybe pandemic or maybe the helplessness which people are seeing in the urban economy, that is not there in rural economy. And that is precisely because rural economies depend on agriculture, and agriculture has seen good days in the past few months, especially because of good monsoon, the bountiful monsoon. Okay. So this is what the government can do. Government can revive the economy by pumping money. And now naturally there's a limit to which government can do. Now, because government also knows that it is not a one-shot approach. Government knows that probably we are hoping that vaccine might come by December or might by January. But by the time it will reach us, because hum to last mein, we are the people at the last. The people in 20s and 30s and 40s will be in the last getting medicines. Okay, so maybe by the time we get the medicine, probably it will be next June, May or June. So naturally economy is going to revive by that time, and government knows that the only way is that we have to hold on the economy till that, and we have to focus. So government should focus on generating demand in the economy, generating demand for products, create jobs by improving infrastructure. Government must incentivize spending by offering tax benefits on amount spent. Government should forget about fiscal prudence this year. For fiscal prudence means reducing government or maybe rationalizing government expenditure. Okay, so don't rationalize, spend. Even if you have to take loan from there, still spend. Consumers in rural areas are buying more than before. Companies are seeking volume will find solace in growth in rural areas in the coming year or so. So that is the only good point that we can say in the recent time. So this is a new consumer, and I believe each one of us, and you can look in your families how the expenditure is being done. The people who are secure, the only people who are secure are people in government job, because they know that their income is coming. People in businesses, whether big or small, everybody is impacted, because economy is, everything in the economy is interlinked. But what I feel is that, now even government has accepted, and maybe I personally believe that things, even though the cases will increase, because government knows that we can't hold people in home anymore. The only way is to increase the number of testing. So right now in past 2-3 days, we are having 8 lakh to 9 lakh tests. Okay, so that is very high. That is a good indication. So testing, contact tracing, maybe, asking people to follow rules. Now time has gone where government will pick each one of people and, put in the hospital, because government does not have that kind of resource. And that is why home quarantine, self-isolation, that is what government is incentivizing. So let's see and hope maybe a greener day will arrive in the coming months. Okay. Increasing dependence on indirect taxes and issues with that. Now, what I mentioned, that what are the sources of government revenue? So there are two broad sources. One is called taxes, and other are some non-taxes revenue. Now, tax revenue of the government is almost 80% of government's total revenue, and the next non-tax revenue is just 20%. Non-tax revenue could be, let's say, government PSUs, government banks, railways. So when they earn money, government gets income. Government might put fine on you. So that is also a non-tax. Government might sell its asset. Government jo apna company बेचता है. So that is how government have non-tax revenue. But broadly, government gets income from the taxes, and the taxes are two types. One is called the direct taxes, and the second is called the indirect taxes. Now, direct taxes are the taxes which are on income, the taxes on the corporate companies, we call them a corporate tax, the taxes on wealth, okay, the taxes on maybe any kind of capital gains. So what is capital gain? So when you purchase anything, let's say painting or property or building, and when you sell that, and there is an increase in the income, so that is called capital gain. So these are direct tax. Direct tax is a tax where the burden of the tax and the liability of the tax, the burden and the liability is on same individual. Okay, yani burden means who will pay the tax? You are paying your tax. So liability is on you, or burden किसे पड़ेगा? वो भी आप पे पड़ेगा. So direct tax is a tax where burden and liability on the same. Then we have indirect taxes. Indirect tax government does not take directly because the burden is on you. So burden is on the customer, but liability to pay lies on the company or seller. Okay, so let's say I'll give an example. So all of you have joined ISH, and once you're paying the fees, we'll give, most of you have got the receipt or are getting the receipt. So when you get the receipt, you must see that there is a GST amount mentioned there. So out of the entire fees that we pay this GST amount to the government, which means, but remember, the burden is on you, but the liability will lie on us. So we will pay to the government. Every month we pay to the government of India. So that is the GST amount that we are paying. Now the point I want to mention here is that this is an example of indirect tax, because the customer, so we have indirect taxes. So example of indirect taxes could be sales tax, excise duty, excise on the manufacturing item, customs when something comes from outside, or it could be goods and service tax, GST, and we have other also tax, for example, excise on liquor. Aajkal daru, you must have heard that daru is probably going everywhere. Daru means alcohol, I want to say. Okay, so these are the taxes which are indirect. Now what happens that in a normal situation, total tax, the direct and indirect मिला के जो total tax आता है, so we have a concept of tax, and we also see that how much tax is coming in the economy. So there's a concept called tax GDP ratio, which means if our GDP is 100, how much tax is coming? And right now our tax GDP ratio is 10.9%, which means that just 11% of the economy का जो भी हो रहा है, it is coming to the taxes. And this 11% is mainly this central government. State government test में added नहीं है, only central government. Which means out of the total economy, just 11% is going to the government. Now, in a normal situation, what happens, or what usually should happen, कि government का income कहाँ ज़्यादा होना चाहिए? The government should be earning more from the direct tax, and it should be earning less from the indirect taxes. Earlier, what happened, and I'm talking about just a decade ago, थोड़ा conceptual and technical भी है, don't worry. A decade ago, almost 57% of the tax was coming from direct, and 43% was coming from indirect. Okay, this part is understood to everybody, right? Tax GDP ratio का मतलब है बेटा what is the amount of tax out of total GDP? GDP क्या होता है? GDP is national income. पूरी country का income को national income बोलते हैं. So out of that, how much is the tax revenue? The percentage, that is just 11%. Okay. So the problem that we are facing right now is, so earlier a decade ago, 10 साल पहले 2008, 9 or 9, 10 में, we were getting more revenue from direct taxes and we were getting less revenue from the indirect taxes. But what has happened that government ने direct taxes कम कर दिए हैं, and government in order, but government has reduced direct taxes so that the government feel that if you reduce direct taxes, business will grow. But what has happened on the contrary, that the businesses have grown, but the direct tax income has not grown, and the indirect taxes, because government has less revenue, so government क्या करती है? They increase the indirect taxes. So what we are witnessing here, that government has increasing dependence on the indirect taxes, and that is a big problem. Because direct tax कौन pay करता है? Direct taxes are paid by rich people, people who have higher income. The bigger companies, they pay direct taxes. Indirect taxes paid by everybody, the poor people. You know, whether Mr. Ambani will purchase a biscuit of 20 rupees, or you will purchase a biscuit of 20 rupees, or a poor person will purchase a biscuit of 20 rupees. Everybody will pay the same amount of tax. But Mr. Ambani, you know, his income is so high that the tax he is paying is practically, you know, nil for him. But people like, you know, me, or people who have lesser income, you know, that, you know, indirect tax, high indirect tax will, you know, will be, you know, a kind of thing that we want to reduce. So if we increase indirect taxes, it is a burden on common man. Okay, because the direct taxes are paid by rich people only, and because अगर आपका 0 to 5 lakh तक का income है, you pay 0% tax. So people who pay direct taxes, the income tax, or the corporate companies, so they pay on the income. But indirect tax is paid by everybody. Indirect tax is paid by you. Indirect tax is paid by me. Indirect tax is paid by everybody. Every time when you purchase an item in the economy, you're paying indirect tax. Every time when you go outside and you know purchase and there is a bill attached to that, which means you are paying indirect tax. So this is a big problem, and that is where you know, government objective should be to reduce indirect tax and increase income from direct tax. But what government has done, government. Why? Because government has reduced direct taxes, and they reduced direct taxes because they felt that when we reduce direct taxes, business will grow, and when business will grow, the total amount of tax will also grow. But business has not grown as per the expectation of government, and in order to अपना revenue को maintain करने के लिए, in order to maintain the revenue, what government is doing, they are increasing the indirect taxes. So that is what this article is all about. So let's analyze them. Everything is clear till here, guys? Any confusion to anybody? Remember this, I generally teach the entire concept in the taxation. जब economy में taxation पढ़ते हैं, then I usually teach this topic. But everybody is understood, right? There's no problem to anybody. Okay, Sai. Okay, everybody, right? Even if a single person feels that they have not understood, they can tell me. Okay, so let's move forward. India with a tax GDP ratio of 10.9%, that is 11%, needs to overhaul of its tax system. The article analyzes India's growing dependence on the indirect taxes and its implication for the poor. So tax GDP ratio is tax revenue of the nation during the period and GDP of the country. Okay, so what has happened? So मैंने क्या कहा, direct taxes से income कम हो गया है in recent years, and why it has come down? Because government abolished a very important tax called wealth tax in 2016. First thing, the wealth tax was replaced by 2% surcharge. Surcharge is tax on tax. Okay, on super rich. So if you're earning more than 1 crore, 2 crore, 5 crore, so you'll have to pay extra tax. So this was replaced by a surcharge, but government rolled back the surcharge in 2019. Government rolled back earlier. The corporate taxes were slashed from 30% to 22% to attract foreign investors and induce Indian companies to invest. Right now, जो हमारा corporate tax है, corporate tax is the tax on the businesses, the big companies. That corporate tax is one of the lowest in the world. Can you believe that? And just a year ago, it was one of the highest. Last year, August में government ने कम किया था. It was one of the highest, and government reduced to one of the low. Right now it is one of the lowest in the world. Okay. So corporate tax was slashed from 30 to 22%. in order to attract foreign investors and induce business companies to invest. Government felt that if we reduce the taxes, people across the world, the big companies, the MNCs, they all will start coming to India. And when they will start coming to India, then that will generate good business, that will maybe attract jobs, maybe make in India, all those things will happen. But contrary to that, whatever government expected, that did not happen. And jab tak kuch hota tab tak this pandemic has come, and we can understand. So cut in corporate taxes have resulted in a revenue loss of 1.5 lakh crore. Government ko itna revenue loss ho raha hai. Okay, have contributed to the making to the state poor. So government has become poor by 1.5 lakh just because government ने अपने taxes, direct taxes को कम किया है. And the idea behind reducing direct taxes, but government wants to tell the world, see, we are business friendly, and business friendly people means we do not impose high taxes. So that is the reason. But when government is facing revenue losses, what they are doing, they are increasing indirect taxes. Okay, indirect tax को बढ़ा रहे हैं. The share of indirect taxes increased to 50% of the gross revenue in 2019 from 43% in 2011. So पहले ये 43% था, now it is 50%. The combined share of custom and excise duty and value added tax is all time high, that is around 10.5% of the GDP. This high was followed by 3-year long steady increase in custom duty on common use goods, petroleum products, metal, sugar, automobile and consumer durable. Right now, when you go and purchase a car of 5 lakh rupees, you'll be surprised to know that you pay a tax of almost 30%, which means out of this 5 lakh rupees, you're paying 1.5 lakh only to the government of India. Okay, so this is a big example of how, and when an American purchases the same car, he is probably paying 4 lakh rupees in America. Okay, why? Because the taxes are less there. But in India, जब government को tax नहीं मिलता है, government put a tax on the even this maybe even the luxury item पे तो government और भी ज़्यादा लगाती है. So car or bigger vehicles come in the luxury category. So the consumer durables. So this is a problem. This also when service tax was hiked from to 18% from 12.4%. You'll be right now the service tax is 18%. In 2014 it was 12.4%. So this is also an example where we have increased the indirect taxes. When you increase the indirect taxes, the tax is on the common people. The tax is on us. The tax is on everybody. And that is where the question mark is there, that government should create mechanism or government should induce tax reforms in such a manner that the common people should not bear the brunt of the taxes. But remember, that is not the entire picture, because most of the revenue that government is getting is from GST, and GST is for essential item, GST is either 0 or 5%. So it is not much, but GST is more on the service taxes. So when you purchase insurance, when you purchase a health insurance, when you purchase a vehicle insurance, so you're paying 18% tax. When you join a coaching institute, you're paying 18% tax. When you purchase a car, you are paying 28% tax. So this is a problem. Now this is running the economy. Remember, ये economy को run कर रहा है. This is creating demand in the economy, and this is running the economy because so government feels that if I'm not getting revenue, maybe we can impose taxes. In future, what government has promised that in coming years, when the economy will stabilize and when revenue will stabilize, then we'll reduce these taxes also, but not today, because today government does not have source of revenue. So this is what has happened over the period of time. Government का ये कहना है that if the income from direct taxes improves in the coming maybe 4 or 5 years, so will automatically reduce the GST and other areas. But till that time, you have to bear the brunt of the taxes. Swachh Bharat cess. What is cess? Cess is again tax on tax. PC Kalyan cess were imposed in addition to GST. Permanent nature of these cesses has widely opposed by the state and criticized by CAG. CAG is Comptroller and Auditor General of India. Okay. CAG has pointed out that lack of transparency and incomplete reporting in accounts on the utilization of amount collected under cesses. All of this is troubling because indirect taxes often penalize the poor and middle class more than the rich. So abhi cess lag raha hai, tax lag rahe hain. These are all indirect in nature, and that is creating burden on common people. Now, case for wealth tax. Government removed the wealth tax in India, and I'll discuss why wealth tax government reviewed, because again, if I discuss today, maybe next 15 minutes will go there. But I'm just discussing most of the developed countries, jo bhi badi countries, the developed countries, they put high tax in terms of wealth tax. Wealth tax is पे होता है, property पे होता है. When you have a house, okay, when you have estate, you have villa, okay. You have, maybe you have gold, you have, you have MM Hussain painting. Okay, so all these are, wealth tax. So usually wealth tax is on the super rich people, people who are rich. Okay, people who have high income. In a normal situation, जो India में wealth tax था, it was if you have wealth of more than 30 lakh, you had to pay wealth tax of 1%. Which means if you have a house of 30 lakh rupees, you have to pay 1%. That means every year 30,000 आपको house tax pay करना पड़ेगा as a wealth tax. So this was supposed to happen, but in India, people don't like to pay taxes. India have a very poor concept of a poor history of paying taxes. And why? Because we don't like paying taxes. We believe that why should we pay taxes? And because paying taxes is like a concept where government says pay tax to us and in return we'll take care of you, in return we'll give you everything. But India में क्या है, जो middle class है, the middle class pays the taxes and of course the rich people. So what both the people say, that government is not doing anything for us. You are giving maybe free ration to poor people, you are giving subsidy to poor people, you are giving cheaper loan to poor people or maybe agriculture people, but you are taking taxes from us. What are you giving us? Are you giving anything to us? Probably not. Are our roads are clean? Probably not. Are our sewage are clean? Probably not. Is law and order good? Probably not. Is are you taking of us properly as you're doing for poor? Probably not. Then why should we pay tax? Why should we pay tax? So that is a common feeling, and hence government should try to maybe make people believe, see, you are paying taxes, hence you are doing service to the country. Right now, Modi government is coming with a new proposal where they want to, maybe they want to celebrate and want to thank the people who are paying taxes. They want to maybe encourage people to pay taxes. They want to, maybe reward people who pay taxes. I don't know what the reward will be, but that is what it wanted to tell. So we have to find ways in which people believe that taxation is a very important part of the economy. Okay, so Preeti has a statement: we are ready to pay for hospital for treatment, but won't give tax to maintain drainage, which will make us suffer from disease. And that is precisely because Preeti, people and I'm sure a lot of people in the class will also believe, when you look at government, you feel that these people are corrupt. When you look at any government department, you feel these people are not doing their work properly. So when we pay taxes, probably you are not doing justice to us. So this is the problem that we face in the economy. So we that is very good in developed country. In developed country, government, people have to pay very high taxes. They pay 30%, 35%, 40%, up to 50% tax. But government will take care of their everything. Government will give them social security, house, education, everything is free. So even when you are paying high taxes, government will take care of you. But in India, that is not the case. In developed country, average income is high, and that is why the tax collection is also high. वहाँ पर जो average income है उन लोग का ज़्यादा है, and because of average income more, people are ready to pay more taxes. At the same time, when people get the benefit of the tax, when let's say you pay more taxes, in return government takes care of you properly. So yes, Germany is a good example. Scandinavian countries is a good example. People pay tax up to 50%, 55%. So when you pay high taxes, you also return that government will take care of you properly. So that is the basic. In a democracy, it is like a social contract, and in that social contract is what's going to help me. Okay, Sam, I'll come to that question. Abhishek, I'll come to that question. High tax rate on wealthy in Europe have played a key role in ensuring a strong social security net for the poor. The successful example should encourage India to consider rationale for wealth tax. Higher tax on super rich could be used for cash transfers, fiscal stimulus, and at 1% of GDP each have been negligible so far. अभी हमने जो government ने help किया, it is hardly 1% of the GDP. A wealth tax, a COVID-19 cess on super rich, and surcharge on the super rich on their income from listed equity share are critical for mitigating the current situation. अभी तो government ने कुछ बढ़ाया नहीं है, remember, but government might relook and might rethink. So we don't know how things will change, but that is a reality. Cut in corporate taxes, indirect taxes revenue. The cut in corporate taxes, indirect taxes revenue increase. Decrease capital expenditure. Government का investment जो हो रहा है वो कम हो गया है. That is capital expenditure. Practically no change in the revenue expenditure on health and education. Show how India's taxation policy is more business friendly than pro poor. So people who are critical of the Indian tax system, they say that Indian government is very business friendly, but they are not pro poor. they should take more money from the poor people, sorry, rich people, and they should ensure that that money is helping the poor people. This is happening when a supply side oriented approach to the economy is counter cyclical. वो कह रहे हैं कि आप इकोनॉमी में डिमांड को बढ़ाओ. What government is saying that let's increase the supply. Supply start करते हैं. तो government से अरे supply कैसे? When you follow a supply approach, demand will not come back. So आप demand को पहले करिए, supply automatically होगा. But for demand, remember government will have to spend. But government is not spending. Government is waiting. Government is waiting a miracle to happen. Government is waiting. Many people, when I open the economy, government will, people will automatically start the economy. But at the same time, government feels that this problem is long. So abhi hum sab kuch abhi nahi kharch kar sakte. We'll spend the money when we feel that it is the right time. Faced with this increased expenditure, pandemic and amid pandemic, center has increased the duty on by record 10 rupees per liter on petrol when global crude prices have been falling. This speaks of the government increased dependency on the indirect tax revenue. So what government should do, that government should look for innovative ways of increasing business. Government should probably उनको कहना चाहिए कि हम सिर्फ कोविड पीरियड में ही टैक्स डालेंगे. Maybe let's say rich people. So they can say during COVID period, you just pay the taxes. Once the COVID period is over, we'll officially announce, that COVID period is over. आपको टैक्स सिर्फ इस कोविड पीरियड में जा देना होगा, and that is what we need. We need your support because that is how the economy is going to revive. COVID-19 may be a blessing in disguise because it allows India to reform the tax system in order to make it work towards inclusive growth and sustainable development rather than targeting only investment-led economic growth. तो अभी हमको investment-led economic growth से हमको we have to move towards sustainable development, and for that we have to reform. And right now a lot of reforms are going on, but I believe the tax reforms which has happened in recent times have not, has not given the right, maybe output. So only time will tell, and government will have to look for innovative ways. So this, this is a complete understanding of the indirect taxes. Okay, Agricultural Infrastructure Fund, so AIF. So government has recently announced a financing facility where government will give loans to projects, big projects, which will help boosting the agricultural business. So infrastructure-based project hoga. For example, post-harvest management infrastructure facility, let's say warehouse banana hua or cold storage banana hua. So government will give this loan to people who want to invest here. So corpus of 1 lakh crore would be for these people related to agriculture. And here government kya kare? Government will give 3% interest subvention. Interest subvention means interest subsidy. जैसे मान लीजिए आपने लोन लिया. Let's say you're making a cold storage. Okay, and this cold storage, you tell the government this is good for agriculture, and government say okay, the cost of the project is, let's say, 2 crore rupees, and you take loan of 2 crore, let's say. So government say okay, in a normal situation the loan is at 10%, 9%, but government said no, you pay only 6%. The 3% loan is subsidy, and this subsidy is called interest subvention. Interest subvention. So 3%. So that is what. So government saying interest subvention 3% per annum up to 2 crore for a max period of 7 years. Moratorium for repayment from 6 months up to 2 years. Scheme to be implemented from August 2020. So ये agriculture infrastructure fund है. This is mainly to boost the agriculture sector, and this money will be directed to develop the agricultural infrastructure in India. So जो लोग भी agriculture infrastructure में invest करना चाहते हैं, it will be good for them. It is a central sector scheme. It will support farmers. PSCS is called Primary Agricultural Credit Societies, Farmer Produce Organization. Okay, agri entrepreneurs in building community farming asset and post-harvest infrastructure. So this is what this project is all about, and this will help to maybe address the concern of poor agricultural infrastructure in India. So this is what will help. You can read the entire thing. Okay, I've already discussed. And this here government will provide a credit guarantee. मान लो आपने loan लिया and you're not able to repay the loan. Okay, let's say you're not able to repay the loan. So government will give guarantee to the bank. Bank को कहेगा don't worry, we'll pay the loan if the business people are not able to pay the loan. Okay, so who will be the beneficiary? The self-help groups, the farmer producer organization, the primary agriculture credit societies, the marketing cooperative societies, agriculture entrepreneurs, joint liability groups, okay, local body, any kind of projects which are public-private partnerships. So these are the beneficiaries. It is important. Remember, it is very important topic for prelims this year. People who are targeting from 2020, they should make a list, and this is very important topic. So be thorough. Each and every line can lead to the MCQ. So that is Agricultural Infrastructure Fund. Now, eSanjeevani. What is eSanjeevani? Telemedicine platform. So this telemedicine allows when a doctor wants to speak to a doctor. So doctor-doctor communication. So it is called eSanjeevani. When doctor-patient. If I want to speak to a doctor from Delhi, I live in a small town, small city, and for that I can use this app. So 1.5 teleconsultations were recently completed on eSanjeevani and eSanjeevani OPD telemedicine. It can telemedicine kya hai? It can increase the efficiency of care delivery, reduce expense of caring for patient or transporting to another location, even keep patients out of the hospital. So maybe let's say I'm here and I seek support from a doctor in AIIMS Delhi. So doctor in AIIMS would say, okay, do one thing. Inka sara primary parameters mujhe de do. So maybe a small doctor here will give me all primary parameters. Maybe the BP or sugar or every parameter. You'll tell all the symptoms, and this AIIMS doctor will diagnose the disease and help. You don't have to go to Delhi and maybe took appointment from AIIMS doctor and maybe wait for the whole day. This can be done technologically, and that can be done in your small town, a small maybe block, and that is what the objective of this would be. Similarly, a small doctor or maybe a doctor who's less experienced can contact the bigger doctor with more experience, and this is how the telemedicine can help. So this is a telemedicine platform. Okay, so you can read this. It is a platform independent browser-based application facilitating doctor to doctor and patient to doctor teleconsultation. Okay, and remember, it is done by government, which means it will be free. It provides ease of accessing health records at the comforts of one's home. The application is based on invite system, which restricts it to actual benefits of the application. Okay, so which means jinko invitation hoga wahi kar sakte hain. So let's say you are a AIIMS patient, but you can't go to AIIMS because of this pandemic. Right now, trains are not running, or even if they're running, then the frequency is less, the flight is costly. So maybe you want that eSanjeevani can be platform which can help you. Okay, so these are the areas: gynecology, psychiatry, dermatology, ENT. Okay, so these are the areas. So you can read it. Now this is a very important topic. Negative import list for defense. Now, if you remember, government is bringing a lot of change in defense sector, and one defense sector changes. The government says that we should become Atmanirbhar or self-reliant in defense sector, which means we should reduce our imports. हमको अपना imports reduce करना होगा, and this reduction will start by ensuring that Indian companies start manufacturing whatever we need. So, what do you want to make? Bulletproof jacket. What do you want to make? A good weapon. What do you want to make? Maybe some kind of support which defense people need. So why don't we manufacture in India? Why we have to take it or purchase from outside? So this is a concept. Now here what government has done, it has come with a negative list of 101 items, and these are the items which cannot be imported. आप इसको import नहीं कर सकते हो, which means when it cannot be imported, which means it will ensure that the domestic companies start manufacturing. अगर import नहीं करेगा तो domestic companies को they will get opportunity and they can start manufacturing. So Defense Ministry has around a list of 101 items that it will stop importing. The negative list essentially means the armed forces, army, air force will only procure 101 items from domestic manufacturers. Okay, so this would probably boost Make in India. This will probably create opportunities for domestic manufacturers. Okay, this will in future might boost our exports also, because सिर्फ हम internally नहीं बनाएंगे, we can sell it to the other people as well. And good thing is that if we have a cheaper exports, if we have a cheaper item, the exports might go up in future. So it has a twin objective. First is meeting our own internal demand, and tomorrow the same item can be exported across the world, because maybe that is in demand across the world. So manufacturers could be private sector players or defense sector PSUs. So anybody, even you and me, if you want to produce, we can do that. Why such a decision? The Stockholm International Peace Research tracks defense exports and imports globally, and India has been the second largest importer between this period. Can you believe that? हम world में second largest importer है, in defense area. By denying the possibility of importing the items on the negative list, the domestic industry is given opportunity to step up and manufacture them in the need of the for the need of the forces. Government has been hoping that defense manufacturing sector can play a leading role in boosting the economy, not just for domestic sector but to exporter as well. And remember, it will also create a lot of employment in India. अगर गवर्नमेंट पीएसयू कर रहा है तो भी होगा, and if it is done by private players, that will also there. What are the items here? Water jet fast track to survey vessel, pollution control vessel, lighter transport aircraft, GSAT terminals. So GSAT terminals आपके सैटेलाइट में लगता है, okay? Radars, unmanned aerial vehicles, basically drones की बात हो रही है. Now drones भी दो तरह का होता है. One drone is high end drones, okay, high end, they can travel like aeroplane, and there are some small surveillance drone जो छोटे एरिया में मूव करता है. Certain rifles, artillery, guns, bulletproof jacket, missile destroyers. So these are the item in a negative import list, and that is a big opportunity for already हमारे इंडिया में जो RDSO है या Indian arm ornament factories and all they are manufacturing. The items in the list are of proven technologies and do not involve any critical or cutting edge technology for the next generating weapon system or platform. Against each of these items is mentioned a year when import embargo will kick in. मतलब कि कोई भी item है, ऐसा नहीं कि import will ban from tomorrow. It will maybe the import will ban from maybe 2 years down the line. 2 साल बाद import ban होगा. And in that period, the companies will be given opportunity that you can maybe come in and maybe meet the demand. Okay, so leading to apprehension that demand will be replaced with foreign vendors until then. But this may also provide domestic players time to build capacity and capability to produce them. Okay, so we'll see how we are able to do that. Government के जो ideas हैं, they are very lofty. The ideas of government are very, I would say, government is ambitious and government is looking at ways how to boost our economy and business, especially because there is a feeling that if you don't do that today, there will be no tomorrow. And government को एक और बात लगता है that COVID-19 is a big opportunity. COVID-19, the phase जो भी almost 1 year of this phase, is maybe realizes a question mark on our maybe ability, and it also puts maybe question mark that when we needed, जब हमको PPE kit चाहिए था, when we needed mask and PPE kit, when we needed maybe ventilators, nobody was ready to help. And today India is the exporter of PPE kit and maybe the mask. The whole across India, we started manufacturing today. Even the bigger companies, automobile companies, started manufacturing ventilators. And today we don't have a shortage. Today that problem is almost resolved. And remember, we are talking just in period of 4 or 5 months. So whenever there is a challenge, whenever there is an opportunity, whenever there is a diverse adversity, when there is a challenge, believe me, there's opportunity as well. So let's look at that opportunity, and probably we have to think out of box. We have to create new mechanism. We have to induce people, where we have to make people believe that this time will never come back. Definitely there's a challenge, but there's opportunity as well. Okay. अच्छा, एक और important news है submarine cable connectivity Andaman and Nicobar. So this is Andaman Nicobar. Okay, Andaman Nicobar Islands, and this is Chennai. So recently what government has done, optical fiber cable, OFC. Okay, and this optical fiber cable has been made, and this is this is very important, and I'll discuss why. The PM has launched the submarine optical fiber cable connecting Andaman Nicobar Island to the mainland. Okay, so what is it? Submarine communication cable is a cable laid on the seabed between land-based stations to transmit telecommunication signals across stretches of ocean and sea. The optical fiber elements are typically individually coated with plastic layers and contain a protective tube suitable for environment where cable will be deployed. Compared to satellite, internet connection through submarine cable is more reliable, cost efficient, and of large capacity. So high speed business, high speed internet communication. For example, if you want an internet communication of 500 Mbps, so this is not possible through maybe Wi-Fi. This has to come through naturally through the cable base or optical fiber base. 2300 kilometers of optical fiber cable has been laid at 1224 crore. Can you believe that? Huge amount of money to provide better connectivity to in the UT. सिर्फ एक UT को connectivity के लिए आपने सोचा 1200 crore गवर्नमेंट ने खर्च किया है. The project envisages better connectivity from Chennai to Port Blair and 7 other islands. Now remember, this is important for prelims. What are the 7 other islands? Swaraj Deep, Havelock, Long Island, Rangat, Putbe, Little Andaman, कोमारता, कार निकोबार, कैम्बल बे, ग्रेट निकोबार। तो अभी आपको क्या करना है, that you will look on all these islands in the map and you'll make a list of these maps, islands from north to south. And UPSC, if I have to make the paper on UPSC, I'll make a question on this. Very simple. And believe me, 99% people won't be able to attempt it. 99% people को लगेगा अरे ये क्या question है? Why should I study this? And then there is a, so if you have understood how the islands are placed, Andaman Nicobar, you'll be able to solve this question. Project is funded by government through USOF, Universal Service Obligation Fund. USOF एक fund government ने बनाया है, and this fund is basically money is coming from telecom company. So जो भी telecom company का revenue होता है, whatever the revenue is, a percentage of that revenue goes into USOF fund. And the idea of USOF fund is development. Telecom revolution कैसे करना है? That is what USOF fund is there. Okay, and remember this project was launched in 2018 as well. So just in a period of 1.5 year, or maybe 1 year, maybe 6, 7, 10 months, 7, 8 months, we can see that project is in high mode. Now question is that why so much money? Now remember, this Andaman Nicobar Islands are very important from security point of view. Okay, so this location is very strategic because this gives you access to, these are very important sea lines of communication. ये जो पूरा area है, this area, these are sea lines of communication. Okay, and these are one of the most, you can say, the most important sea lines of communication. Almost 1/3 of the world, business on the sea route moves from here. So that is why it is very strategic. Second is when China is trying to enter here, China is trying to enter from here. It is trying to build its base here. It is trying to build base in Bangladesh, in Myanmar, in Maldives, in Pakistan. So what we have to do that, जो भी हमारे bases हैं, whatever our areas are, we have to make them stronger. Whether it is communication, whether it is having right now already in Andaman Nicobar, we have military bases. We have so there is a huge presence of military and navy there. So that is what. So we have, these are very important from strategic point of view, from future point of view, and that is where government should ensure that they have complete control over over the areas in Indian Ocean. Okay, so OFC will enable faster delivery of faster and more reliable mobile and landline telecom services to Andaman and Nicobar Islands at par with other parts of India. The submarine optical fiber cable will deliver a bandwidth of, now this will surprise you, 2 into 200 gigabits per second. यानी अगर एक movie होगा, वो it will be download in less than a second between Chennai and Port, and 2 into 100 Gbps between Port Blair and other island. Okay. So besides 4G mobile services which were constrained due to limited bandwidth provided by satellite, will also see a major boost. So it's a 4G technology, जो mobile communication है वो भी improve हो जाएगा, and this is what is going to happen. Okay, so this will facilitate delivery of e-governance services, telemedicine, teleeducation. The small enterprise, the business will also get help. Okay, business price outsourcing, जो भी technology driven business है, that will all, the IT driven business will automatically grow here. Okay, so this is the advantage. But in this point, one of the most important point has not been mentioned: the strategic importance of the island. Okay, now you must be reading newspapers almost on daily basis, and you must have come across this term called contempt of court. Okay, so there is a very famous lawyer called Prashant Bhushan. You must be knowing him. Now, Prashant Bhushan is a very famous person. Okay, and the reason why he's been famous because he is an activist, and he mainly criticizes government. So he criticizes government on almost everything, and in major issues, government has gone to Supreme Court, and Supreme Court has given decisions. And when the decisions were against, or when mostly the decisions that have come in the favor of government, he has criticized Supreme Court. Okay, he has criticized Supreme Court. He has been telling Supreme Court is not doing so well. Supreme Court is killing the democracy. So Prashant Bhushan, and there are certain group of people who are kind of anti-establishment. Okay, anti-establishment means they're against government, and whenever government does something, when government makes a law, so these people, they have a coterie and they go to the court, and when they go to the court, they put their petition against the government. And what has happened in recent time, that government has played their card very well. From a legal point of view, whenever they have brought a new area or new changes, they have made such a smart case of the legal study that Supreme Court is not able to find fault in the government decisions. So naturally, Supreme Court has given yes to most of the government decision, and these people have been very unhappy. So what has happened in the past 2 3 years, as per my what I have witnessed, that there has been an increased criticism of the criticism of the judiciary. So judiciary criticism बढ़ रहा है. And when you criticize the judiciary, now there is nothing wrong in criticizing the judiciary, but the point here is that when you cross the limit, and that is where the concept of contempt of court comes in. So when you criticize, judiciary, and now government judiciary will decide whether you have gone. So you have gone against judiciary. You have said the words which you should not say, and so that is where judiciary has power, and this judiciary power is called contempt of court, and the contempt of court charges can be put against you. You might be put behind the bar. So there is a limitation to which you can criticize the judiciary. So contempt of court is a century-old British law abolished in 2013. At the time, British Law Commission said that one of the intention of the contempt of court was to hide judicial corruption. Now that is what one side says. The other side says that every time when you criticize judiciary, it is bad for the country. Why it is bad for the country? Let's say if there are one odd instance where you feel that judiciary has not done, it is okay. Aapne judiciary criticize kiya. When judiciary gave a decision which favors the government, it is okay, you criticize. But when it becomes a trend, when judiciary gave a decision in the case of Ram Mandir, or when remember when judiciary gave the decision in case of Ram Mandir, it was based on facts. It was based on sheer logic. Even one of the panel member was Muslim. So when I would not say that what is right and wrong. Let the government the court will decide what is right and wrong. And believe me, it is a case which has gone since years. So judiciary took on itself, and they take an extra leap and ensure that this issue is resolved, and that is how the decision came. Now, naturally, when such decisions come, people will question it. There's nothing wrong in questioning the judiciary. But when you go, over the limit, when you start criticizing government, judiciary, when you criticize Chief Justice of India, when you say petty things, when you kind of abuse judiciary, then there is a problem. And that is where judiciary has, so far it has been ignoring in the past few years. But recently judiciary has said, no, limit is limit. And now you have to show cause notices they've given, and they are being asked that why you are doing this. And if there is a proven contempt of court, now contempt of court has been proven. Now judiciaries might give a verdict in few days. Shayad kal verdict aane wala hai. So if that verdict comes in, and especially the people who have been so activist or have been criticizing judiciary, mainly maybe he said he gave 2 tweets, and that tweets were very harsh against CGI, and that is why court took the cognizance of this, and that is what it is happening. So the concept therefore clash with the need of transparency and also freedom of speech. Now remember, there are one more thing. Judiciary is not immune to criticism. Criticism karna, remember, in a democracy, criticism is a natural right. You should criticize. But when the criticism leads to a situation where you're using bad words, when you're using expletives, when you are saying something to judiciary without having a solid fact and understanding, then that is a question mark. So recent time, but remember, there is one more thought, line of thinking, or maybe you can say thought process, which says that what if judiciary कोई decision देता है, तो judiciary, the people who are giving decisions in judiciary, they are not God, they are normal people, and hence they are also they to err is human. To err is human, so you can also make an error. So judiciary कहता है हाँ ठीक है, we are not denying that, but there are options. There is the option of review petition. There are options of going to the court, at higher bench, a bigger bench. Okay, so use that provision. Use the constitutional method. Don't maybe start criticizing judiciary in such a way that kind of impacts the faith of democracy. The people who believe in judiciary, unko lagta hai, arey, judiciary is doing bad. So that is not good for a functioning democracy, and we have to probably find a way to that. In 1968, a British judge had to say to the law of contempt, "We will not use to suppress those who speak against us. We do not fear criticism, nor we do resent it. But there is something far more important at stake. It is no less than the freedom of speech itself. In 2008 lecture by Justice Markande Karju, the test to determine whether an act amount to contempt a court or not is this: does it make functioning of judge impossible or extremely difficult? Or if it does not, then it does not amount to contempt of court, even it's a harsh criticism. So एक जो line of thought है among judges also, some people feel it is okay, this criticism is okay. But some people have taken heavy exception. They say no, it has become a trend. You can't do it all the time. We ignored once, we ignored twice, but it has become a norm. Every time some verdict comes in and you start criticizing judiciary, you write articles against judiciary, and then whole that coterie start speaking, then that is discussed in media, and that kind of maybe puts a question mark on ability of judiciary in functioning their duty. While justice is important, just must not make themselves too seriously. Even if the armor propre is offended, armor propre is of course the judges, it does not mean the institution has been questioned or justice has been brought into disrepute. Judges deliver justice, they do not embody it. They should never forget that court is supreme because it is final, not because it is infallible. When they lapse, they can be criticized, but of course, politely and fairly. So this is where the question mark has been there. Indian Supreme Court hopefully can pay attention to this aspect while delivering judgment in on the contempt cases. So देखते हैं क्या होने वाला है. Only time will tell. But I think these people, especially Prashant Bhushan, has crossed the limit, and he should be taught the lesson, because I've been following him from years, and it feels that there is a whole when you criticize government for any policies, it's okay, but when you start with the agenda and it is because it has become a natural practice, then it should be a question mark. I think judiciary should maybe punish him, and judiciary should give a probably a message to all such people who take the judiciary or the entire system for granted. Now remember, system there are check and balances within the system as well. You can't say that system is system has its own limitation, but system में strong check and balances hai. A very strong check and balance is public opinion itself. But remember, public opinion many times are influenced by these people, and that is bad. Okay, agar fact hai, you can use it, but if it is mere just by saying and later on say no, we did not mean, we mean something else, so that is not a way, an approach. So that is issue of contempt of court. So I hope this news is going on from multiple days, and let's see how things move. It will be civil case, it will not be criminal case. Senator has a question, it is criminal case or civil? It's a civil case. Now, clause 6 of Assam Accord. Now let's go a little in the history. I hope these topics are a little too heavy, but don't worry. In half an hour more, I'll be covering the important topics. Rest I'll leave it to you. Okay. Now, so if you just imagine the map of Assam. So if you see Assam, there is a Meghalaya near Assam, and then there are some northeast states, and here we have Bangladesh. Now this Bangladesh, okay, this is a Bangladesh. So Bangladesh, there has been history from 1951 till today also, 2020. One of the issues which has happened is basically of illegal migrants. So illegal migrants crossing Bangladesh, going to Assam. Now why Assam? Because Assam has a lot of opportunity. Assam is good for agriculture. Okay, they move to Assam. Assam also has industry. So when this illegal migrants started increasing, it became a political issue. Okay, and Assamese, the local Assam population, the local Assam people, they felt that this is not good, because these illegal migrants, they come, they settle, they get illegal, they get legal with time due to maybe getting fake documents and all. So eventually they become legal, they become part of the political system, they start voting, fight elections, okay, over the period. So that has created a problem where local Assamese, Assam people feel that that local Assam culture, language, everything is being maybe changing, and it is not good for Assam. So these Assamese people, they started asking government that you have to change this. The problem increased and worsened in 1971 when the war between India and Pakistan happened. So this India-Pak war led to entry of 10 million refugees. Can you believe that? 10 million, 1 crore refugees. They came to India and they mostly stayed in Assam, Bangladesh, West Bengal and other Northeast Asian states. So when they came, later on they went back, but many of these people stayed back and illegally they stayed back and they were able to, remember India does not have resources to, maybe track each one of them, does not have so much police force or, border, and the corruption is also very high. So this led to a situation that these refugees, they started, adding to the population, and that led to a fear of foreigners, among the Assamese people, and they started, saying that now you have to reform this. That is where the Assam Students Union, ASU, All India Assam Student, they started having a revolt. They started having a kind of movement, and that movement, which started in late 70s, became very, I can say, violent at times, and it is like the whole Assam population was behind this movement, and this young, students, they started this. Now, when this ASU movement became very famous, then Rajiv Gandhi was the prime minister, and Rajiv Gandhi felt that we have to resolve the issue, and Rajiv Gandhi signed an Assam Accord. And in that Assam Accord, it was decided that 1971, a cutoff date would be there. Okay. And in this Assam Accord, there will be a National Register of Citizens, NRC. यानी हम एक register बनाएंगे NRC, and that register will have a cutoff date of 1971, which means everybody in the Assam will have to prove that you have been living Assam before 1971. Either you, if you can't prove, your father, your grandfather, your ancestors should be living here, and you have to have a proof. So this NRC for citizen was mainly for Assam that started, and that was promised by the Rajiv Gandhi government, but it was not implemented. The BJP government, when it promised to the Assam people that we will implement this Assam Accord, even though it is an old promise of 30 years and we should be doing that. Now, what exactly this NRC say? That it will identify all the citizens, and people who have come after 1971, they will be illegal migrants. Okay, and these illegal migrants will be deported and whatever will do, but they will not get the rights of our citizens which a normal people get. So this is what Assam Accord is all about. But remember, there was one more thing, and there was a section 6 or clause, right, as a clause 6 of Assam Accord, and it said one more thing. Not only 1971 will be cut-off date, उस cut-off date के बाद जो भी Assam में आया, that person will be identified, and that person will become illegal. Okay, and that person will not have the rights to live in Assam. उनका right, they will not have a right to live in Assam, and they will be identified and they'll be moved back to their own country, maybe in their own country. उनको deport कर देंगे, or they will have to live in the camps. One more thing is that these Assam Accord also said, what about 1951 to 1971? Because this was also a period where a lot of migrants came, and here government said, see, this is okay. After 1971 ka to okay, but in this period we will give preference to Assamese people, which means the Assamese people will have a preference to job opportunities, and people who have come in this period, they will get citizenship, but they will not get a preference of Assamese people. For example, in this period, people who came, they will not get government job. They will have just 10% of government job quota, and rest 80-90% will be of the Assamese people. So this is what clause 6 of the Assam Accord. So right now government has already implemented NRC, and right now this cutoff system has already been implemented, and government is still working on them. But this clause 6 was a contentious issue, because here again, what about people who have come after 1951? Now they have got citizenship through a legal mean. Remember, wo citizenship legal ho chuke hain, but you are not giving them an equal right in the state as others should get. But what Assamese are saying, see, it is completely okay, but remember, try to understand, we have Assam has an old culture. We have preserved this culture, and hence we have the first right to the resources. It's like I belong to this state, I belong to this city. So if somebody comes to this city from outside, the job of this city first be given to me, to my ancestors, to my family members. People who came later on for opportunities, they are exploiting the job, and that is completely not done. And this is what there is a concept of son of the soil theory. Son of the soil means कि जो local लोग हैं, you know, the language, son of the soil is basically, mostly based on language. For example, Maharashtra, Marathis, you know, uh, other parts of India also, you see across that when you go to Gujarat or, go to Tamil Nadu, you'll see that locals, they tend to ask that locals should get an opportunity. So this son of the soil movement has always been there in every part of India. But in Assam, it has become a very sensitive issue. And what, the current government said, the BJP government, that we will implement the Assam Accord as promised by Government of India. But this has led to a new problem. So this is what the Section 6 is. And Section 6 में Clause 6 में government ने कहा कि we will discuss of the Clause 6 as well. And a government made a committee on this. कि what are the committee recommendation, and that committee has submitted the recommendation. अभी उसने वो submit किया recommendation, and this is a problem. Now remember, what government also promised that this NRC will also be there for whole India. पूरे India के लिए भी all India NRC होगा. So this is again a problem, because people across India feels that we have to prove that we have been living in India, since 50s or 60s or 70s or 80s, we don't know. And that has been the bone of contention. Before this COVID-19, you must have come across the whole debate of CAA and NRC. कभी मैं time मिलेगा तो मैं इस पर discuss करूँगा whole history and what are the repercussions and what are the positives and negatives of this. So this is a concept. Now, in a normal situation, a national register for citizen is like a register telling that these are citizens, identifying people who have been in India and they are citizens. And people who are not the citizens, they must have come through some illegal mean. Because India में document पाना, आधार पाना, election voter ID पाना through fake mean, it is very easy. You can easily get the Aadhaar, or you can easily get fake ID. So government is also plugging the loophole, but many a times the people are corrupt and they do it. So one way is that let's go back in the history and identify people who have actually people living in India, और उनको हम citizenship देंगे, वही लोग citizen होंगे, और बाकी लोग, people who have come later after that, should not be given the citizenship right. So this is the concept of the Assam Accord, or you can say the NRC. Okay, so government appointed committee had submitted its recommendation for the implementation of Clause 6 of the Assam Accord, a key provision that has been contentious for decades. It is a part of the Assam Accord which came at the culmination of movement against immigration from Bangladesh. It reads, क्या कहता है? Clause 6. Constitutional, legislative, administrative safeguard as may be appropriate shall be provided to protect, preserve, and promote the cultural, social, linguistic identity and heritage of the Assamese people, which means the entire accord is about Assamese people. The Assamese people should be given preference, and people who have come to India after a certain cutoff date should not get the legal right to stay. For recognition of citizens, the Assam Accord has said 24 March 1971 as a cutoff. As immigrants up the cutoff date would get all the rights as Indian citizen, so Clause 6 was inserted to safeguard the socio-political rights of culture of indigenous people of Assam. तो अभी जो 71 March 71 से पहले आए थे, they will be citizens, but there also the Clause 6 will have a few more things. Several committees have been set up over the years to make a recommendation for the implementation of Clause 6. None of them have made a headway on the provision of contentious issues, however, until the latest CAA move. Following widespread protests against the CAA, government gave an urgent push for Clause 6 to pacify the Assamese people. Headed by retired High Court Justice Biplab Kumar Sharma, the committee was asked to fast-track its report. It submitted its report in February, but government did not make its contents public. Some Assamese activists independently made the contents public. Its brief was to define Assamese people and suggest measures to safeguard their right. Yani, the period of 51 to 71, this period, in this period also people who came and who got citizenship right, they will not get the same right as Assamese people. Okay, Assamese people will have more right. The definition of Assamese have been subject to discussion for decades. The committee has proposed the following to be considered Assamese people for the Clause 6. All citizens of India who are a part of Assamese community residing in the territory of Assam on and before 1951, any indigenous tribal community of Assam residing in the territory of Assam before 1951, any indigenous community of Assam residing in the territory of Assam before 1951, all other citizens of India residing in the territory of Assam before 1951, and of course descendants of the above categories. तो ये जो लोग हैं इनको हम clause 6 में हम उनको आइडेंटिफाई करेंगे, and these people will have other benefit. क्या benefit होगा? Why 51? During the Assam agitation, the demand for detection and deportation of migrants who had illegally entered Assam up 1951 started. Assam Accord, however, set off the cutoff date for March 1971, and NRC was updated based on this cutoff. Clause 6 is meant to give Assamese people certain safeguard which will not be available to migrants between 51 to 1971. If the recommendation is accepted, then those who migrated between 51-61 would be Indian citizens, but they won't be eligible for safeguard meant for Assamese people, which means कि आप 51 के बाद आए हैं तो आपको you will get the citizenship of India, but you will not be accorded same privileges, or you can say help as as the Assamese people. So that is how the entire thing is. Among various recommendations, the key is the reservation of seats in parliament and local assemblies, reservation in jobs and land right. तो उनका ये है कि Assamese people should get reservation in seats in the parliament, in jobs and land right. So 80 to 100% reservation in parliamentary seats of Assam, okay, will be assembly and local seats will be reserved for Assamese people. 80 to 100% seat for Group C and Group D level posts in Assam in central government, PSUs and all. 80 to 100% jobs for government of Assam and state government. 70 to 100% of vacancies arising in private partnership. Land right with restrictions on imposing transferring land by any means to person other than Assamese people. So ये सारा recommendation है. Now the only thing is that whether government will accept these recommendations or not. I personally feel they are way too contentious, बहुत complex हैं, and they will create more divide in society. So we'll see how things move in the coming years. Several other recommendations deal with the language and cultural and social right. On language, it recommends Assamese language shall be continued to be official language throughout, for the use of local languages in Barak, Hill District and Bodoland. Mandatory provision of Assamese language to paper in state government services. To set up academics for all-round development for each of the indigenous tribals such as Bodo, Mishing, Karbi. Okay, so ये जो tribal areas हैं. In Assam में ना Assamese के अलावा tribals भी हैं. So these tribals का भी culture को promote करने की बात हो रही है. So that is what clause 6 of Assam Accord is all about. Okay. So this Assam Accord is clear to you, everybody? समझ में आया, right? Okay. So these are little complex, I believe, but read them properly. And remember, these are some very complex issues. So I would be probably, discussing these things as the issues will go. It is a part of social issues. मैंने कहानी की तरह पूरा समझा दिया, okay? And now the small little gaps will be filled once you start reading regularly, okay? So that is clause 6 of Assam Accord. Okay, one more news which came: Supreme Court has expanded the human rights, Hindu women rights to be joint legal heir and inherit ancestral property on terms with the male heirs. Yes, Rita. Yes, beta. Yes, beta. Okay, so let me complete the lecture. So the lecture will be over in 15-20 minutes. Then I'll discuss. So abhi kya hai? This news is very important. Now remember, you have a family, and there is a property. Okay, so property in a legal terms, what happens in India? So India is a male dominant society. So the property mainly passes on to the male heir. Okay, not to the female. And why? And why not to the female? Because that is the cultural thing. But we made a lot of changes, and 1955 Hindu Succession Act, Inheritance Act, these were amended, and it said that men and women both should have equal right in the property of their family or parents or father, unless the father or parents have made a will. एक will बना दिया है. In a normal situation, will जो parents बनाते हैं, they mainly give the property to the male heir. So this is a cultural thing, remember. Many times women or girls fight for their property right. That is also okay. But when the will is made by father or the parents, then there's nothing, you can't change this. But this is how the acceptance is there. Many a times, even if you know the girls feel that they should have the equal right in the property of their parents, but they don't say anything. And the reason is because they feel that it might disturb the sibling relation. Okay. And there is one more feeling. It says that when a woman gets married, she takes dowry. Okay. She might be a partner in maybe her new home. Okay. So why she should be getting, and woman in Indian society is you know is parayadhan. Okay. So she's parayadhan, so she'll get married and she'll go to her real house. So that is the accepted norm, which is culturally norm. Now that is not right, remember. And that is, these practices should be undone. But society, to change the society and culture is not will not happen in a day. What has happened through hundreds of years cannot be changed in 1 or 2 years. And that is one way, is to bring social change. And that social change will come from one thing, that is laws. Okay, so government has made a law, and there was some technical aspect here where we still supported the male heir, and that Supreme Court has undone. Our Supreme Court का ये कहना है that women have equal right as the male in the family. They can be joint legal heir, and that is what the way forward should be. Unless until there is a will of the person who is the owner of the property, and then in that case could be different. So the Supreme Court expanded Hindu woman right to be a joint legal heir, inherit ancestral property on terms equal with male heir. The Supreme Court bench ruled that Hindu woman right to be joint heir to ancestral properties by birth and does not depend on whether her father was alive or not when the law was enacted 2005. अगर father ने कोई will नहीं छोड़ा है, legally that should be go to the Hindu Succession Act, Amendment Act gave Hindu women the right to be co-partner or joint legal heir in the same way as male heir does. And this is by birth, and it is not necessary that father should be living as one of that. अगर parent नहीं भी अगर है, and then legally it should go to this thing. So that is the entire thing. You can read it. In one line, it means that today this Supreme Court judgment has made, or has made to believe, that women have equal right to their parents' property as male. Okay, and I personally believe that there's nothing wrong in that, and that is how. In fact, every people like you and me should believe. Every people like you and me should believe that we should make our own lives. If something you get in inheritance, it is your luck. Remember, you should take the control of your life, and you should create property for yourself, and not. You should not expect that you should get something from your parents. If you get it, you will get something. There is no denying from that fact. But you should not have this feeling that this is mine. Okay, this is not yours. Remember, that effort, that property, that business, or that house, or whatever you might be residing, that is your parents' house. Okay, so everybody in the family should have equal right. And then if that feeling gets ingrained in society, then only society will change. Okay, we have to treat mothers, wives, daughters, everybody equal. Okay, and then only dynamics will change. Okay, so you can read this entire thing, and these are some Supreme Court judgment also discussed that. If there is any issue, I'll take it in the coming lectures. Okay, so PK Joshi, Pradeep Kumar Joshi has been the new UPSC chairman. What is UPSC? UPSC is a body which conducts. It is a central recruiting agency. Okay, so I'll tell you about, because I've been to UPSC multiple times, because I've given an interview. So when you go, UPSC is on Shahjahan Road. Shahjahan Road. Okay, and that house is it's called Dholpur House. And once you enter in the UPSC building, it's like this. This whole is the campus of UPSC building. And why I'm telling, because I've been multiple times. I've given mains exam here. So this is the entry. Let's say this is the entry. And when you enter here, there's whole big exam block here. So people come, the UPSC center यहाँ लगता है, others exam also. And then you have this. Then there is a building in round shape. Okay, this building is a round shape. There's one more kind of office kind of here is there. So you enter here and you go there. You sit here for first they will scrutinize you, whether you're candidate for interview and all, and then you go here inside, and this whole round is big rooms. Okay, so there are some 8 to 10 big rooms are there, and all these rooms are the rooms of the members of UPSC. Okay, these are members of UPSC, and these members of UPSC are, every member is a head of a interview panel. Okay, so you might go, and what do you do? Basically, आप अंदर जाते हो यहाँ पे, and there is of course here there is whole sitting arrangement for students. There is all toilet and all here. You can keep your books and all here. So you'll sit there, and when your interview call is, when your number will come, you'll go to any of the interview panels. So right, every time, so 7 to 8 interview panels are going on, simultaneously, and that is how. So this UPSC chairman is the head of the entire, the organization. He also many times he also heads a panel for taking interview, and that is how UPSC is conducted. So UPSC is the Central Recruiting Agency of India, and it conducts many examination. It conducts UPSC Civil Service Examination, Indian Engineering Service Examination, NDA examination. Okay, then some Indian Economic Service Examination. There are some other examination also, small examination, Indian Medical Service exam, some medical Central Medical Service Examination. So n number of examinations conducted by them. So this I just recalled it. Tomorrow I hope that you'll also go in this building and you'll give interview, and then you'll come back and will tell me that, so this is how I gave my interview. Okay. So yesterday we had a toppers talk, and we discussed about the interviews. Okay. So this is the chairman of UPSC. Okay, fair enough. So UPSC is a central recruiting agency, and it conducts examination in the entire history. Okay, it is also required to considered by government in matters related to appointment, transfer, promotion, and disciplinary matters. So UPSC recruit nahi karta hai. Even in your career, later on in the career, it can advise on certain areas. As per Article 316 of the Constitution, chairman and the member of UP shall be appointed by the President of India. In the case the office of chairman becomes vacant, his duty shall be performed by one of the members as President may appoint. Okay. Okay. So ये सब conditions होते हैं इनके. This is something that you read. You should just read it in the polity. Okay. How they can be removed. They can rule only by the President. Commission report directly to the President and can advise government to it, which means UPSC is an independent body. Okay. It is an independent body. It is autonomous body, and that is how it functions. Okay. So we have body like UPSC. We have body like Supreme Court. We have judiciary. We have body like Election Commission. So these are very independent, and I can say with certainty, I cannot say the same thing about the state boards, but UPSC it is completely I believe almost 100% is fair. One odd here and there case could be there, but almost every recruitment is fair. Because when you see a rickshaw wala, son becoming an IAS officer, when you see a people from very lower, income background becomes, when you see somebody from rural background getting into the services, cracking the exam, definitely there is that system is transparent and healthy. So this is UPSC thing. Okay. Now there is a concept of immunity passport, and this has been in news. Is it heavy, guys, or is it okay? Things are going well, right? I should continue. Okay, I hope everybody is going, because we already crossed 1 hour 45 minutes, and the current affair is heavy many a times. Okay, good. So what are immunity passports? So you have COVID. Let's say anybody COVID infected here in my class. I think Shivani was infected, right? Shivani is there in the class. Okay, anybody got COVID infected among you? No. Okay, Sai is, you are speaking for yourself. I'm not. Okay. So Shivani is not there in the class. I think she must have left. So she was there in the beginning. So Shivani, so any COVID, so when you become COVID infected, which means you develop immunity. Okay, so you develop immunity, you have antibodies. But the problem with COVID-19 is that we don't know everything about COVID-19. Even today we are discussing that. Kritika Goyal, Kritika, you had COVID-19? Okay. You're okay right now? Everything is fine? Okay, good. Chalo, take care. Okay, so you already have the immunity already with the against the disease. So this COVID-19, the problem with COVID-19 is that we don't know in the entire about disease. Even today, people are getting even people, new symptoms are coming even today, because there are multiple strains of the disease that we are coming every day, which means this is a very complex disease and it is highly infectious. Can you believe that? Because you don't know where the infection is coming from. Many a time, you are saying that maybe it is coming from air droplet, it is airborne. Many a time you're saying that you can touch those, areas, so it is very difficult and it is practically impossible to follow the hygiene, or you can say respiratory hygiene, or, every time it is impossible to wash your hands every time. It is impossible to, wear the mask every time. So definitely it's a challenge. But the people who got infected, they are saying that we have got immunity against this because we have the antibodies, and hence don't restrict us in travel or business or anywhere. So you should allow us with travel and work without restrictions or quarantine. So let's say if you go UK, you'll be quarantined. If somebody is going from one country to another, you get quarantined, or there will be immediate test. So they're saying that why don't you give us immunity passport? And once you have an immunity passport, then everything will be okay. Because I have the immunity passport, I can go anywhere. But the people who are still studying the disease, they're saying that we don't know there can be reinfections, because there have been cases of reinfections. There is one more problem. Remember, right now there are three tests rather which are done for COVID-19. One is RT-PCR. Okay, other is rapid antigen test, and one more thing is some NAT. I'm not able to call that three tests are there. The problem is that this RT-PCR is the most effective test, but this rapid antigen test is almost 60 to 70% is false negative. Okay, which means we don't know. Same is true with NAT as well. So this is a extreme concern. And at the same time, RT-PCR is also not 100% effective. So the problem here is that many times we don't know that whether you got tested, whether you have infection or not. The chances are there we'll be able to identify. But this is a problem. So reinfection, whether it can happen, we don't know. Whether a person is 100% COVID-19 or not, that is also difficult today. So there's a lot of debate that is going on, that should be given immunity passport. But overall, the medical experts say that this should not be allowed, because we still do not know much of the disease. And yes, definitely the people who have got infected, the chances of them getting infected will be less or very less. But there are multiple strains of the disease, and hence we don't know 100% about this disease in certainty. So only time will tell. And they are saying that vaccine is the only way forward. And when the vaccine is going to be given, then we can say the whole society or country will have herd immunity. Okay, and that herd immunity, it can be achieved only through vaccine. So that is the only way forward. So this immunity passport should not be given, because it will create more problem. It will also maybe lead to a situation where कि भाई immunity passport मतलब आपको COVID-19 हो गया तो आप कहीं भी जा सकते हो, okay, because you are immune. But remember, the people who are criticizing, they're saying that we don't know for certain that whether you are immune or not. The first thing. The second is, what about people getting fake certificate? Many times it can be public health risk. So we can't allow this to happen. And immunity passport will further create a society of have and have not. So पढ़ लीजिएगा, जो मैंने सारा समझाया वही short में है, have and have nots वाला. So this is the immunity passport. So that is the immunity passport, this thing. This is the last topic for the day, and then I'll close for the day. Okay, so Indus Water Treaty. So when India and Pakistan got divided, or when the Pakistan was created out of India, so we had one of the contention issues, that how the rivers of Indus and the tributaries will be shared. So there are 5 rivers along with Indus: Jhelum, Chenab, Ravi, Byas, Satluj. So these are 5 Indus plus 5 tributaries. So what it was done, that we will divide rivers into 2 parts: the western rivers and the eastern rivers. The western rivers होगा वो Indus होगा, Jhelum and Chenab, and the eastern rivers would be Ravi, Byas and Satluj. Okay, so we have two rivers, the western rivers. Now these western rivers will go entirely to Indus Water Treaty was signed 960. This entirely go to Pakistan, and this would go to India, which means India will use their water completely. But in the western rivers, uh, in these western rivers, what will happen that India can make dams, but these dams should not disturb the flow of the water. And there is a concept of a run of the river dam. So जैसे मान लो this river is going. So river normally is coming from height. So let's say this river is going. So what I do that I take a stream of river water का एक stream निकालता हूँ from the river and I make a dam here. And then this dam, there's a turbine here, all the power generated, and this water then adds to the main river. Okay, so which means I have not created a big reservoir. It is called run of the river project. So run of the river project means that you just channelize the river or redirect the river, a part of the river towards the dam. You generate power here, and that then the same river water adds to. So this is called run of the river, run of the run of the water, run of the river project. Project is there, and these are called dam. So these dams are allowed, but not normal dams. The normal big dams are like, you what do? You create a reservoir. You just river is coming, so you create a reservoir, and then you kind of create a gate here, and it flows like that. But remember, here you are disturbing the natural ecology of the river. You're creating a reservoir, so that will disturb the natural river, in the lower part of the wherever the river is going. So this dam is not allowed, but this dam is allowed. So this is a debate, and why it is discussed today, because India has refused a request by Pakistan to hold a meeting on issues around Indus Water Treaty at Atari checkpost near Indo-Pakistan border. Okay, so वहाँ पर ये debate चल रहा है, and many times projects are going on. For example, right now India is taking on projects here, and many times when India is taking project, Pakistan has objection. The problem here is that India is at the vantage point because the rivers can be controlled by India. But remember, this is probably the only treaty in the world, and I have read multiple water treaties. This is probably the only treaty in the world, and mark my words again, this is probably the only treaty in the world where a country which is practically controlling all the rivers has been so benign and friendly or benevolent to the other country which is getting it. But Pakistan every time accuses India, maybe that they are not doing this and they are not doing that. So this is probably, and that India has been shown a lot of sagacity, a lot of maybe you can say flexibility here in addressing Pakistan concern. And what the current Modi government has been they are saying that this river should entirely be in our control. So why don't we use the entire water? Why don't we allow the river to go to Pakistan? क्या इसका पानी हम क्यों नहीं कम कर देते हैं? And this could be a very strong way of using the foreign policy. This is strong way in which, without fighting the war, will make Pakistan come back to the track, because Pakistan will do all the tricks here. And if the Pakistani people do not get the water which they have been getting since so many years, probably they will understand, and the Pakistani people will themselves force the government that what you're doing is not right, because that is how India will respond. It will be tit for tat. So if you are spreading terrorism in India, okay, they are stopping the water. So we don't have to fight a war. A very good way is that I can maybe control the waters of Ravi, Byas, Satluj. I will not touch these, remember. I will not touch these. ये तो आप जो चल रहा है वही चलेगा. I will touch these, not because these are India's river. These are India's control as per Indus Water Treaty. So I can impact these. And if I impact these, remember, ultimately, अभी देखो यहाँ पे, this is Indus. So Indus is mainly going in Pakistan. That's okay. Jhelum, Chenab. Okay, so this Jhelum and Chenab. Now Byas, this is Ravi. So the Ravi is almost, again this is going in Pakistan. Satluj is also going in Pakistan. Byas is going on Pakistan. So all the three rivers, if their flow gets impacted, this whole is a highly important agricultural belt for Pakistan. So this can impact the future of the Pakistan's agricultural economy, and that has been the real problem which should be addressed. Okay, so Indus Water Treaty, and what is the problem? This I've discussed already. The treaty allowed to use western rivers for limited irrigation use and unrestricted use for power generation, and while laying down precise regulation for India to build projects. So run of the river project. Abhi क्यों news में है? Because there are some technical aspect to some projects which are in Chenab. So Chenab में run of the river project है, उस पे technical aspect है, and Pakistan is objecting to that. But India has said, see, why are you objecting? Because we are just following the rules as per the treaty. And Pakistan has said, no, let's have a person from outside. So India has called for a neutral party, while Pakistan favors court of arbitration for final resolution. But India says, see, if you go in the history, every time Pakistan has objected, every time India has won the case. So maybe this is a maybe way in which Pakistan, kind of creates a problem, and they try to show the world, see, we are getting, we are getting impacted by India. Okay, so Indus Water Treaty. So that completes, India says a technical issue and mutually resolvable. So let's understand. Let's complete. That is all for today. Just read all of them. These are some very important news from exams point of view, also from prelims as well as mains. I hope everybody understood it. Okay, so now I'll take some questions.